can't go on the porch. If that's what you're talking about, you cannot go on the porch, honey. No. Not where my plants are. No, you're not gonna go out there where my food is. You're gonna have to stay in here. You're gonna have to stay in here, honey. You better play for something. Don't you mess with that baby stuff. Okay, let's see. Where is our book? Ooh, the best years of our lives. Good day, family. The best years of our lives are between 50 and 80 years old. hmm I just was, I set up my little bookshelf. I got me a small bookshelf. And I found these notes from Dr. George Fraser. Yep. There was a, there was a massive study, y'all, and they did like tens of thousands of people, and it was like come to find out, birth to the age 49, you living, you experiencing life, and then from 50 on, that's when you make your greatest contribution to life, to your people, to humanity, I guess, so to speak. But it's so good to see y'all. Who is this? Hey there, call dog. How you doing, my brother? It's good to see you. I was just on earlier doing my garden. Be sure and let my sisters know if they already have it. Get them gardens going and stuff. Get them growing. And if they have already, uh, help. Give some of the other sisters and stuff. I don't know how. If their mindset is able to, I don't know, comprehend the severity of what we going through and stuff, what's to come, maybe, yeah, be able to give them a little bit more. I'm gonna try to give out a little bit, some seed packets and stuff. I'm gonna deliver it tomorrow. Yep, I'm gonna even stay a little bit so we can at least do it together. Do the first ones together and stuff. I'm gonna have the soil, the seeds, the pots. I might stop and get a jug of water. Yeah, cause there, the tap water and stuff is different everywhere. It's a little better out here where I done moved to and stuff, but I still try to have water, buy water. I don't mind drinking it if I have to and stuff, but I'm finna make me a water filtration system. I want to make me my own water filtration system to go with my stir fries. If I want some flavor in there, I just go over there and pick a bay leaf or something and toss it in the water, and there your little flavor right there. But it's so good to see y'all. We're gonna read a little bit. Yeah, I ain't too late tonight, but we're gonna read a little bit of property. I don't think we got too much, and of course, I did not bend down the page where we was at. I'll find out where we was at. So we ain't gonna back up too much. But yeah, it was good to see y'all earlier and stuff, with our gardens and stuff. And please, any tips, let me know, because this is my second time attempting an inside garden. And I got a little bit more space to work with and stuff here to get it going, and just put forth an effort. Even if it don't bring all that I'm looking for to have for my inside garden and stuff, I'm okay with it. I take 5 or 6, of them. I got like 10 different seeds that I planted. But if only half of them give me a harvest and stuff, that'll be fine. That would be fine with me. I'll keep trying and keep working and growing with the rest of it and stuff. Because I didn't have no idea all this was coming. When I seen sister say we got like 2 weeks before, the trucks are done, the trucks are going to be stopping one by one by one by one until there's no more. Nothing coming. I think they done came to an agreement. I haven't looked at it though, but we still got to do this. Do this anyway, regardless of who come to an agreement or an assignment. We still got to do this. We still need to do this. Make sure we still looking out for us first, because shit might still flip the script on us. Might still flip the script on us and stuff. So yeah, that's where we at, and we can do it. And about the incense and stuff, I went and got me some sage. I was looking for some Palo Santo when I walked up to the store earlier, but they didn't have any. And look at that on there. I don't know if I can grow this. It's got like little seeds, little stems on it. They falling off too. Let me put it back in here. See, it's sage. It's got like, I'm gonna try to plant this to to have, and I can burn my own sage. I have my own sage to burn and stuff. I don't know, maybe not. It seemed like a good idea though, didn't it? I'm gonna have to ask them, what are these? Yeah. But yeah, let's read, y'all. It's good to see y'all tonight. Oh, I wanted to let y'all know I found these cards too right here. I ordered these from Urban Intellectual, and they got a whole lot of different cards, y'all. Okay, I was thinking he in there digging in some dirt, but everything is on the porch. But yeah, they got different kinds and stuff. They intellectual, Black history. And I just haven't never opened them and stuff because I don't play cards. But yeah, I showed them once and I had packed them up and I just found them. Oh, look at Mia, Mae Jemison. Remember we read about her when we first started. Maurice Ashley. And it don't tell, we'll have to look him up. Althea Gibson, we learned about her. Yeah, these are really awesome. Chadwick Boseman said the struggles along the way are only meant to shape you for your purpose. Yep. La Amistad was the 19th century schooner owned by Spanish colonized Cuba. In July 1839, a group of enslaved Mende people led by Singbe P seized control of a ship which was subsequently docked in Long Island, New York. After a series of legal battles, the Supreme Court ultimately restored the freedom of P and the surviving Mende. It's a movie, Amistad. Okay, yeah, these are awesome right here. But yeah, I don't play cards, so I never really use them and open them and stuff. I'm gonna find something else to do for to do good. So yes, we are reading property, and it's like another aspect of the book we read. They were her property. Dealing with it's giving insight into the white woman's huge role control to slavery, because you know the white woman owned most of the slaves. She got her slaves when she was 3 days old, 3 weeks old, 3 years old. Yeah, she got her slave. She got slaves and stuff. Martha had over 150 slaves when her and George Washington got married. Cause remember, I think it was this book. No, it was our book in the daytime. Claude Anderson, Dr. Claude Anderson. It said that George left his slaves to Martha, so she had even more slaves because he had some slaves too. And he stipulated that when she died, they would be free. But she got to thinking about it. She didn't want to be what's standing in between them and freedom. And yeah, but yeah, white women, they had more to do with slavery than we thought. We might have been under the impression that the white woman, she tried and she wasn't able to help us any. But that's far from the truth, y'all. Yeah. Oh yeah, I love Palo Santo now. Yeah. I don't know what kind this is because it don't have the name on it, but it looked like it might be some white sage. I'm gonna burn me some too in a minute. Yep. I'm gonna make sure I get them seeds and keep them and stuff. Because if I can grow them, I'm gonna have to set them out. I'm gonna get them their own little pots for the incense that I'm gonna grow and stuff. If I could grow my own sage to burn and stuff, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. So I want to, at least try to be self-sufficient, y'all. We gotta at least try to be self-sufficient now. By force. It's by force, but hey, we can do it. If anybody can do it, it's us. Just be wary and know what we need to have by necessity. We don't need to have no petty stuff. We don't need to have that going forward. We need to have what's going to benefit us and what's about our business. And that's it, and that's all. Let me see where we at in this book right here. So her husband was killed. Yeah, because we ain't read it in like a day, I think. I guess we'll start right here. Mr. Sutter was dead too because they had killed her husband. And Mr. Sutter, they killed him too. Mr. Sutter was dead too. They had stopped at his house first, sneaked in a window and cut his throat. When Rose got there, she found the door wide open and Cato, the driver, standing on the porch. Don't go in, he told her. Just tell Mrs. Mr. Sutter has been murdered in his bed. Send the boy for the doctor, I told her on hearing this news. And she headed back to the quarter. Delphine was filling a tub with warm water. Best I cut that dress off you with those scissors, she said. Oh, I didn't even read the copyright there. Honey, let me read this sucker. Shoot. Copyright disclaimer on the 107 of the Copyright Act 1976 allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair uses are used permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing, non-profit, educational, or personal use. Tips to balance in favor of fair use. I remember I was talking about memorizing that. Shoot. I'll read it off every time. Be like 6 years before I done memorized this thing. Just get it off, I said weirdly. I don't care how you do it. And remember, she was shot in the chest, in the shoulder right there. She had unknotted the skirt and was cutting it up the front when we heard heavy footsteps coming rapidly through the house. Lock the door, I said, but before Delphine could get off her knees, a deep male voice called out, Hello? Is anyone here? Blessed Providence, I thought. There are still white men alive. In here, I called out. In the kitchen. One by one, they filed into the yard. There were 4 of them, dressed in vaguely military coats, high boots, armed with swords and pistols. Where was they when I needed them? Their eyes grew wide as they discovered me, sitting in my kitchen, covered in mud, my face swollen and beaten, my useless arm cradled in my lap. I recognized one, an acquaintance of my husband, a lawyer named O'Malley. Mrs. Gaudette, he said solemnly. It is my unhappy duty to inform you that your husband has been murdered. I hardly knew whether to laugh or cry because remember, she hated him because she couldn't have kids. He was sleeping with all the slave women and stuff, and he had got Sarah pregnant twice. And she hated him, and Sarah hated her and him. So she really didn't care that he was killed and stuff anyway. It was as if I had been in a foreign country, a land where madness was the rule, and returned to find nothing changed but my own understanding. I glanced at Delphine. She looked dismayed, though her features were composed in an approximation of civility. She's worried about what will happen to her now, I thought. We all are. Every minute of every hour. Mr. O'Malley stood waiting for my response. He was worried I might have gone mad and he would have to deal with it. I know it, I said calmly to his obvious relief. I was there. It was hours before I spun together the threads of the various stories and produced a credible fabric. I hardly cared, but it was a kind of sewing, and I used it as usual to keep my mind off my own suffering, which was intense. First, there was the pain occasioned by Delphine picking the bits of cloth from the wound in my shoulder and cleaning it with alcohol. When Dr. Landry finally arrived, he admired her nursing skills and my endurance, then set about determining the most outermost limits of the latter. The shots of brandy I downed at the start had worn off by the time he dug out 3 lead balls and announced there were only 2 to go. I can't stand one more second, I cried. Don't you have something stronger than brandy? He poured another glass. I've seen soldiers who could not hold up as well as you, he said, a compliment for which I felt the greatest indifference. After what seemed an hour, he held up another ball in his tweezers and dropped it into the wash basin with a sigh. I'm going to have to leave the last one in, I'm afraid, he said. It's buried too deep in the muscle. I raised my good hand to wipe the perspiration from my forehead. That's the best news I've had in days, I said. Then he gave me the worst, which was that I would never recover the use of my arm. One of the balls had chipped a bone and severed a tendon at the top of my shoulder. Oh, honey. I might go on to the getaway. Because this show what happened. Maybe we'll read on up to it and stuff, but honey, you know Sarah got that baby, started wrapping that baby up. Remember, it's coming back now. I had forgot all about that part right there. We're a little further on up, y'all, in the story. You'll be able to use your hand all right, he said. Eventually, you may be able to raise the arm a little. While I reeled from this diagnosis, he took out his needle and thread and went to work on my face. O'Malley and his men busied themselves putting the house to rights. They picked up my husband's body and moved it to the ice house. Or have she already escaped? Let's read. Mr. Sutter was brought there too, wrapped in a blanket, so none of the hands could see him, as it is well known that the sight of a dead overseer agitates the Negroes. 2 of the patrol stayed downstairs all night, prowling about ceaselessly. Though there was no danger in the insurrectionists returning, there was no danger of the insurrectionists returning. After wrecking the house and taking off everything from flatware to footstools, as if they intended to set up a plantation of their own down the way, they had marched to the river road in time to run right into the patrol. The chase was violent and protracted, much of it in the bottomland where mud and darkness complicated the outcome. One of the patrol was shot in the leg, another stabbed in the eye. 4 of the Negroes, including the captain, were shot dead. The other 2 were captured and trussed for hanging. The patrol had passed half the night in pursuit and spent the other half moving the captives downriver, where they were joined by a second patrol coming north, who informed them that a battle was raging in Donaldsonville and all men called. It was not until morning that Mr. O'Malley recollected seeing my spoons gleaming in the mud and thought to investigate the Gaudette plantation. When it was all over, they had captured 50 Negroes. Everyone was shot or hanged in the next few days. Casualties among the planters were not heavy. There was a dozen injured and 2 murdered. My husband and his overseer, Mr. Sutter. Yeah, she done got away already. I want to say she done got away already because remember, Sarah wanted the horse. But no, what's her name? Manning Gaudette, Manon. Manning, the missus, she wanted the horse, but Sarah had wrapped the baby up. Remember, Sarah wrapped that baby up when she heard that whippoorwill call, and it was that man that Manning seen standing under that tree. He was the one that made that whippoorwill call, and that was to let Sarah know to wrap the baby up. See, the oldest little boy, she didn't take him with her. He was deaf, he was older and stuff. She didn't have anything to keep him quiet down with, I suppose. But she wrapped that baby up, and when she heard that whistle and stuff, so Sarah ended up getting away. Manning got away too, but she was shot in the shoulder. She actually put mud all on her so that she could get home and stuff. That's how she made it there. So I guess that's where we at. The next morning, my aunt came up from town. She was followed by a mural drawn cart containing two coffins sent from Chatterley by my brother in law, Charles Gaudet. So I'm going to read this and we're going to catch on up. This gentleman arrived with his son Edmund in the afternoon. I refused to see anyone as I was too sick to leave my bed. So all the arrangements fell to my aunt, which suited everyone. She sent me her own maid, a capable nurse who administered different medicines and fed me soup, tea, and custard. Though it hurt to eat, I was ravenous. All day I listened to the front door opening and closing, the drone of voices. At first subdued, but as the rooms filled and my aunt served a buffet dinner with quantities of wine, gradually more lively, occasionally punctuated by laughter. My aunt looked in on me every hour to describe the of the funeral. Progress of the funeral. All the planters for miles along the river attended, before even those who had disliked my husband or scarcely made his acquaintance understood the importance of standing at his graveside. See, they all stood together, regardless. In the evening, they walked out to the cemetery for a brief ceremony, then came back to the house for more food and wine. I heard it all through a curtain of pain. Toward dark, they began to drift away, and so did I into a feverish sleep. When I woke, it was morning, and my aunt was sitting next to my bed with an envelope in her lap. How are you feeling, my dear? She said. There was an agreeable moment of clarity in which I knew that my husband was dead and buried, followed by a blast of pain so powerful it chased out every fact save itself. Never worse, I said. What can I give you? She gestured to the table of medicines. Just a little water. She fainted. Oh, she poured a glass and brought it to my lips. Is the letter for me? I said when I swallowed a few sips. It is from Joel Bolden. He particularly asked me to bring it to you. Let me see it, I said. My aunt proffered the envelope, and I made an awkward business of opening it in my lap. I shook out the page and read, My dearest Manny, the enormity of your misfortune is so staggering I hardly know what words to write. First, your dear mother, and now this horrible misfortune and loss. If I can be of any help to you in the days to come, please call upon me. If not, I hope it will be some small comfort to you to receive the sympathy and affection of your devoted friend Joel. Now, I do recall that her and Joel had liked each other when they were younger, before she had met the man. This is so kind, I said. Then the stabbing pain in my face reminded me of my injuries. I laid my palm against the bandage over my cheek. What will I look like when my face is healed? Dr. Landry is an excellent surgeon, my aunt assured me. He put 27 stitches in my Inez's forehead, and there is barely a scar. But my mouth, I said, probing the spiky threads that ran from inside my lip to the base of my chin. My aunt made no reply. Perhaps she thought me frivolous, though I doubt any woman can entertain the possibility of disfigurement with equanimity. I folded the letter and slipped it back into the envelope. I had to use my left hand to move my right hand into a useful position. What would look worse, I wondered? My face or my arm hanging limp at my side. Manning, my aunt said, where is Sarah? She hasn't come back? No one has seen her. Delphine must know. Nope. I looked at my hand. There were 3 bruised marks just behind my thumb. She bit me, I said, because Sarah fought her to get to that horse. Merciful heaven, my aunt said. She took my husband's horse and rode off. I begged her to let me get away, but she wouldn't. Then she has run away. my aunt concluded. But where? I exclaimed. She can't have gotten far. She's probably hiding in town. It would surprise me if Mr. Rogan didn't know something of her whereabouts. I shall write to your uncle to make inquiries at once. My husband is dead, I thought. Why would she run now when she was safe from him? It didn't make sense. She has a baby with her, I said. That would make it all the easier to find her. I could see her face again, her lips drawn back over her teeth, her eyes crazed and glowing in the torchlight as she pointed out my husband to his murderers and stood by until the blade had descended upon his neck. Yes, I agreed, we would find her. But see, she got a sexual perversion for Sarah too. The missus do. Yeah. She's sexually assaulting Sarah too. I sent for Delphine to question her, to quiz her about Sarah, and to find out what she knew about that night. She said she had gone into the yard after supper to throw out the dishwater, and when she came back, she saw three of the runaways standing in the kitchen. So they were already in the house when I was speaking to my husband in his office. Delphine slipped out of the yard and crept along the back of the house to my window, where she threw pebbles until Sarah looked out. I told her what I seen, Delphine said, and she said for me to wait till she passed me her nail. So I hid by the wall. Then she wrapped up the child and passed her down to me. But I looked out then, I said, I didn't see anyone. I seen you, missus, Delphine said, but I was afraid to speak out, and I figured Sarah told you. So I stayed still till she passed nail down to me. Then I run around the other side of the house, and that's when the shots rang out. I hid in the bush till you was all running out on the lawn. And you gave the baby back to Sarah? Yes, missus, she said. She called to me. Then I run back to the kitchen and locked myself in with Rose till you come. Where do you think Sarah might have gone? I asked, though I didn't expect an honest answer. Delphine hung her head. I don't have no notion, missus, she said. No matter, I said confidently. She won't get far. If she ain't returned within the week, I should take out a notice in the journals. And that would bring the slave catchers like flies to sugar. Delphine made no response. I considered the last information as good as delivered to Sarah's ear. Send Rose to me, I said. She'll have to serve upstairs until Sarah is returned. My father would never keep a runaway, but he never let one stay away either. It took him 6 months and cost as much as the man was worth. If it took him 6 months and cost as much as the man was worth, he would gladly take the loss for the example it set to the others to see a malcontent returned in shackles and straightway sold at market. He made sure all our Negroes were informed of the proviso to the warranty, that whoever bought the man must know he had run away and could not be trusted, and that his value had been accordingly diminished. Diminished. That didn't sound right. He made sure all our Negroes were informed of the proviso to the warranty, that whoever bought the man must know he had run away and could not be trusted, and that his value had been accordingly diminished. So that way, who bought him will know he'll run away and go already start out. This policy resulted in a very low rate of absentees from our farm. Father deplored the laxity, Laxity. Father deplored the laxity of his neighbors, who allowed a hand to disappear for 2 or 3 days at a time, always when the crop was in an urgent condition, then returned to take his lashes and rejoin his companions with tales of his cleverness in eluding capture. Father wept with laughter when relating to us the policy of Mr. Hampton of Laforche Paris. That's Lafourche. Laforche Paris, who administered a certain number of lashes for each day the slave went missing. 15 lashes for one day, 30 lashes for 2 days, etc., etc. Father called this plan the 3-day furlough, for it was revealed that most of Mr. Hampton's regular runaways returned by midnight of the third day, which this gentleman cited as proof of the efficacy of his system. House servants were another matter. I can remember only one instance of a runaway from our house. It happened just after the fearful insurrection downriver when I was a little girl. We were never in any danger from it, but Father went to the city just afterward and on his return told us what an alarming state the countryside was in. 500 slaves had simply gone mad and marched down the river road toward New Orleans, banging drums and waving flags. They killed Major Andrew's son and wounded the major, set fire to mills and barns, raided the biggest houses. A stream of planters' families in wagons and carts, having taken flight in whatever vehicle they could quickly find, preceded the rebels into town. It took almost 10 days to rout the Negroes. The governor called out the militia in every patrol in 50 miles. It cost the state so much the treasury was bankrupt, and the reimbursements had to be paid in installments. Father told Mother, when he thought I was asleep, though I was listening breathlessly on the landing, that the heads of the leaders were sprung up in the trees all along the river from New Orleans to Major Andrew's plantation, and many a planter took his Negroes out to see this display, to scare them. Yep. That was when our housemaid Celeste disappeared. Father went back to the city and made inquiries until he learned that she had a brother among the insurrectionists. He was, in fact, one of the leaders. Father took a room in the hotel and spent several days following every rumor he could scare up. In the end, he found Celeste hiding out in the restaurant kitchen where her mother worked as a cook. You have comforted one another mightily, Father told her, but now it's time to come home. She did not resist, returned to our house and stayed with us. Always useful and even tempered until Father died. I doubted that Sarah would be so tractable on her return, and if she made me spend much time or money tracking her down, I would not be so lenient. Now she getting. How was I to remember exactly what she was wearing? I was running for my life. Sarah's costume didn't present itself as a remarkable feature of the evening. She had three jerseys, I told my aunt. One very like the other. What does it matter? Well, it would help, my aunt said with a testiness that suggested she was wearing of my difficulties, though not so much as I. It is usually included. I closed my eyes and tried to recall the sleeve which I had clutched, endeavoring to stop her, the skirt rising in two puffs over the saddle as she rode away. It must have been the brown linsey, I said, and she had the baby wrapped in her shawl, indigo wood. It was an old one of mother's. Very well, my aunt said, bending over the page on which she was writing out the notice. That would have to do. Aunt Lilia was convinced that Sarah was in the city, though my husband's horse had been found wandering on the levee a few miles north of here. She probably rode up to the landing at Bayou Sarah, spent the night in hiding, and got on the ferry the next morning. She wouldn't have been so foolish as to ride south into the fracas. She will need money if she hopes to get anywhere, and she will doubtless call on Mr. Roget for help. Perhaps he has already provided for her, I said. She had half a dozen opportunities to spin out a scheme with him when mother was ill. But my aunt remained convinced that Sarah would not leave the area without meeting Mr. Rogan. She would try to pass for a free Negro, she said. With her color, she can easily bring it off. Are you putting that in the notice? I asked. Yes, she said. There were moments when I thought Sarah had plotted the entire insurrection. She and Mr. Rogan whispering together under my mother's house. See, she remember when she had her ear to the floor because she said she heard whispering and she thought it was coming from the wall or the floor. I'm thinking it was Sarah and him planning so that she could get away because they was in love with each other. And Manning's uncle had Sarah, but he didn't. He hadn't offended it. But well, rapist Sarah was in love with Sarah, whatever. But he didn't want this man to have Sarah, so he sold Sarah, gave Sarah to Manning's daddy, and he gave Sarah to Manning. So Sarah is hers now. She would try to pass for a free Negro. With her color, she can easily pass it off. Yes, I'm putting that in the notes. There were moments when I thought Sarah had plotted the entire insurrection. She and Mr. Roget whispering together under my mother's house. though that was surely unlikely. She would not have been as frightened as she was, nor taken the precaution of getting her baby outside the house at the start. She only took advantage of the confusion, and of that event she must have longed for my husband's death. Because she heard the whistle, the whippoorwill call. That's when she started wrapping that baby up. She only took advantage of the confusion and of that event she must have longed for, my husband's death. She assumed I would be murdered as well, and it would be several days before anyone would think to look for her. None of the slaves at the master's funeral, my uncle is fond of saying. There's always one who will bolt. I think this will do, my aunt said, blotting her page. Shall I read it to you? I suppose so, I said. $75 reward. Isn't that rather high? No, I think not. I have seen rewards as high as $100 for a house servant. They are often difficult to apprehend. Go on, I said. The girl, Sarah, about 27 years old, and her 8-month-old baby girl called Nail, ran away October 27th from R.P. Gaudet Plantation in Ascension, Paris. Tall, slender, fine-featured, light complexions, speaks English and some French, wearing brown linsey dress, indigo woolen shawl, no shoes, very likely has a scar behind her left ear. I didn't know that, I said. She fell into a fence when she was small, my aunt said. It was mentioned in the title. She continued her reading. Well spoken, of good address. Cause see, they had Sarah, they just passed her down from one to the other. I wouldn't say so, I said. I would say she was of sullen address. My aunt gave me a long look. She'll be trying to get on, she said. Will probably make her way to New Orleans. May pass as a free Negro. $50 additional reward on proof to conviction of any person who may harbor her. Won't that last bit just encourage Mr. Roget to send her out of town? She won't stay with him, my aunt replied. That would be too obvious. Perhaps you're right, I said, feeling thoroughly bored and aggravated by the whole business. But she ain't gonna let her be free, though. My shoulder felt as though a hot iron were pressed against it, and my head ached. Is it time for my medicine yet? My aunt put the page aside and came to my bed. My poor dear, she said, are you in great pain? I am, I said. She poured out a spoonful of the sleeping tincture. Take this, she said, and rest a bit. I'll go down and speak with Charles. He has brought his own draught over from Chatterley to serve as overseer here until you are well enough to decide what you want to do. I swallowed the medicine. I know what I want to do. I want to sell it all. I want to sell it all. Everyone and everything. Everything and everyone. We'll talk about it when you are strong again, my aunt said, soothing me as she might a sickly kid. My head, my head seemed to droop forward like a flower broken on its stalk. I fear I will never be strong again, I said. You ain't never been strong. You ask me? I'm just saying. Dr. Landry visited regularly to change the dressing on my shoulder and bring me news of the world. One morning, he removed the bandages from my cheek and pulled the last stitches from my lip. The redness will fade, he said, when I requested a looking glass. That gash in your cheek was so crooked, it was the devil to sew. I gazed at my reflection. Now this is pitiful, I said, pressing the swollen ridge that divided my lower lip. In truth, it was not so bad as I had feared. The way they done lashed up black people's bodies. And he gonna say, a beautiful woman is rendered more beautiful by a scar. It reminds a man of what suffering she has endured. In your case, we are all awed by your courage. The courage to run away and hide? Many a woman would not have had it. I wondered if this was true. I remembered my state that night as one of general terror, punctuated by a few moments of clarity when I knew what to do. If that was courage, what good was it? Sarah, who had been terrified, was the one to ride away unharmed, and my husband, who even I could not deny had been brave, was dead. I was not so hypocritical as to be disturbed by the grim satisfaction I felt whenever that last fact surfaced in my consciousness. He was dead. He would be receiving no more reports. I smiled wanly at my altered reflection. It is worth it, I thought, handing the mirror back to Dr. Landry. My husband saved my life, I said honestly enough. The good doctor laid his hand upon my own and expressed again his deep sympathy for my loss. Later, with his assistance, I was able to go downstairs for the first time. My aunt had put everything in order, but there was ample evidence of violence. The spyglass was dismantled and lay in pieces on the carpet. There were gashes in the dining room table, a curtain was down, a mirror shattered so that only glass splinters remained in the frame. In my husband's office, there were shot holes in the wall just inside the door. He fired and missed, I observed to the doctor. Then somehow he got out alive, but he left his second pistol behind. Unspeakable. Unspeakable, Dr. Landry said. A weakness in my legs caused me to lean hard upon his arm, and he led me to the chair where I sank down gratefully. We heard a sound in the hall. A door slammed. There were quick footsteps coming toward us. Of course, I thought, I would not get off with just a few scars, a useless arm. My husband would have his revenge upon me, and he would have it every day for the rest of my life. Dr. Landry looked out the door, his brow furrowed as a low whine began. He stepped aside, allowing the creature to pass into the room. The little boy, Sarah, little boy, the one that was deaf, he couldn't hear. That was the master's son. The baby, she took the baby with her, but she left the little boy walking. Delphine had cleaned him up and dressed him in short pants and a loose linen shirt half tucked in at the back. His face was still swollen. The bruise had faded to yellow. He came to my chair and began patting my knee, babbling nonsense with the confidence and intensity of a lawyer making an irresistible argument. I looked over his head at Dr. Landry, who covered his beard with his hand and shook his head slowly. The air, apparently, I said, and then as if he understood me, Walter turned to the doctor and gave a shout of what sounded like joy. Yes, honey, Walter finna be the air. And he can't hear, but I bet he can read lips. I bet he can read lips. I bet Walter been all over that house. I bet Walter know where everything at. And Walter gonna find his mama too. Yep. But let's read. I have never liked my husband's brother, Charles Daudet. He's an arrogant man, boyish and supercilious, like my husband. Only worse because he has been successful. He is the youngest of three brothers and the richest of all of them. Since my husband's murder, he has taken to strolling around this property as if he owned it, addressing me in salacious tones, as if I were addled and must have every word repeated. As soon as I was well enough to receive a visitor, he was at the door, eager to get at my husband's books to see what chance he had of being repaid the money he was fool enough to loan his brother. Rose was so poetic dressing my hair. I had her brush it out so it fell over my shoulders. I disguised my lip with rose, my cheek with powder, and fixed my elbow so that it rested on the arm of the chair, thereby lifting my shoulder to a normal position. My recovery had left me thin and pale. The parlor intensified the blue of my eyes, or so I told myself. Charles' eyes betrayed only the mildest alarm when he came into the parlor, where I had arranged myself to receive him. I held out my left hand as he approached and he bent over, brushing his lips against the bridge of my fingers. My dear sister, he said, you have been in my prayers every minute. Do you pray so often? I said. He stepped back, remembering that I had never been charmed by him. He tried another line. Maybelle sends her love and her sympathy, he said. Then I felt sorry for him because Maybelle is as fat as a hog. That thought led straight to a pang of guilt. Maybelle, alone of my relatives, showed me the courtesy of refraining from any mention of God in her condolence letter at mother's death. Let me read that again. Maybelle, alone of my relatives, showed me the courtesy of refraining from any mention of God in her condolence letter at mother's death. She recounted the kindness mother had done for her when her son was ill, and mother directed her to a specialist. Everyone else felt the need to assure me that mother's death was part of God's plan. Exactly. I wanted to shout after reading this sentiment half a dozen times. His plan is to kill us all. And if an innocent child dies in agony and a wicked man breathes his last at an advanced age in his sleep, who are we to call it injustice? Please give Maybelle my warmest regards, I said to Charles. He wandered away to a chair and lowered himself into it with the care of a man who has been riding all day. Your aunt tells me that you are feeling well enough to take an interest in your affairs. I am, I said. It seems to me there's a great deal to attend to. You needn't be bothered with any of it, he said. We are in hopes that you will come to live with us at Chatham. My aunt has told him what mother's estate is worth, I thought. That is kind, I said, but I long to be near my aunt, to be of use to her. She has been so good to me. I see, he said. The children would be disappointed. This remark was shockingly transparent, as I hardly knew my nieces and nephews, nor have they ever expressed the slightest interest in my acquaintance. I looked about the room, resting my eyes upon various empty spaces where ghosts might reside, and indeed I felt a curious chill, such as I used to experience when my husband looked at me. I can't bear being in the country, Charles, I said. I never feel safe for 1 minute. Of course, he said. I hadn't thought of that. I want to sell this place and everyone in it, except Delphine. I'm sure a buyer could be found, he said, but I fear the price will not be satisfactory. My husband was in debt to half the parish, I said, enjoying the amazement that settled upon my counselor. He owed you $5,000, isn't that correct? Close to six with interest. I'm not sure of the exact amount. He owed the banks a fortune. He owes the factor more than he would have made on this year's crop. Still, I think if I sell everything, even at a poor price, it would clear out the debt. I would have to look into his books, he offered, but tentatively now. Yes, you should do that, I said. You might want to take a glass of whiskey with you to brace yourself against the shock. My poor brother, he said, considering the full extent of my husband's folly, which included having a wife who knew what he was worth. Fortunately, I have my mother's estate, I said. I will move into her house in town. The income from her investments will be sufficient for my needs, so I shall have no occasion to call upon the charity of my husband's relatives. He frowned. I'm pleased to learn that you will be independent, he said. I think you couldn't be at peace any other way. But is it wrong for you to speak of the solemn obligation I bear my brother's witness as charity? But it is wrong for you to speak of the solemn obligation I bear my brother's witness, my brother's widow, as charity. If you were penniless, I would consider it both my duty and an honor to provide for you. It was the first time anyone had called me a widow to my face. I liked the sound of it. I pictured my fate in this man's house. Yeah, I know. Just chill out. You ain't going outside. I pictured my fate in this man's house if I were forced to rely upon his honor. The widowed aunt, sulking about with an embroidery hoop, called upon to play the piano when the young people wanted to dance. And I sent a heartfelt message of gratitude to my mother for her sound investments, her excellent financial sense. Thank you, Charles, I said. May I rely upon you to see yourself May I rely upon you to see to the sale? I will speak to my agent today. He looked about the room, valuing the furniture with what I suspected was an expert eye. He would want to make an inventory. I'll take a few small pieces, I said. The dresser and carpet in my bedroom. Delphine would doubtless want some indispensable pots or spoons. Of course, he said. If there is anything you want for yourself or Maybelle might want, please feel free. No, he said. That would not be correct unless I deduct the value from my poor brother's debt. At least take his pistols, I said. He will want them to stay in the family. His eyes settled upon me, full of sentiment. A thoughtful suggestion, he said. I'll take them with pleasure. My shoulder had begun to ache, and I longed to terminate the interview. Yet I couldn't resist one final test of my relative's goodwill. I don't suppose you would be willing to take Walter off my hands, I said. His cheeks flushed, and he gave a nervous cough. It was with difficulty that I maintained a frank, interested expression. Manning, he said, searching for words. This was one piece of my brother's property he wanted nothing to do with. I pictured Walter running across the veranda at Chatterley to greet the guests at the annual ball. My little nephew, Charles might explain, while Walter rubbed mud into some elegant gentleman's waistcoat. Maybelle, Charles continued. She hasn't been feeling well. It's all right, Charles, I said, taking pity on him. You've no obligation to take him. Delphine is the only one who can manage him, and for some reason she's attracted to him. Then it would be for the best, he stammered. It would be for the best if that child had never been born, I said. Just hateful, honey. My brother-in-law nodded sagely. I understand the mother has run away. She has, I said, but I expect we will find her soon. Don't put her name on the inventory. I don't plan to sell her. He gave me a questioning look. I could no longer bear the pain in my shoulder. I eased my elbow from his support and winced my arm as my arm fell limp across my lap. If I have to live with Walter, I said, so does she. Honey, we on part, what is this, 4? Yeah, that's a 4 right there, the I and the V. We on part 4. I know. Thank you so much. We got there fast because I didn't do all of that reading, that talking, and comment and introduction and stuff. I just read the copyright disclaimer. Oh, my ancestors. This is the last chapter right here. Yes, honey. This is the last chapter. Let's get started on it. What time is it? Yes, we ain't going to finish it, but we're going to get started on it. We're going to finish it tomorrow night. Oh, good day, Larry. It's so good to see you. My brother. It's so good to see you. Yeah, we're reading property now. We're almost done with this. The last chapter right here. This another portrayal or version of one family, the master and the missus and her slave Sarah. And this right here, they were her property. Property was the general, the broad aspect of white women enslaved. Because white women receive most of the property, the profits, the assets, the money. Even had a law. And so, the white woman, she received most of the profits. Almost 100%. Your uncle is persuaded that we should engage Mr. Leggett, my aunt said. We were seated in the parlor of my cottage. It had taken me barely 3 weeks to be resettled in this agreeable domicile. Domicile. My aunt was eager to return to town, and as I couldn't be expected to spend a night alone in my husband's house, I had come down with her, leaving Rose and Delphine to pack my clothes and follow. I was propped up on the pillows on the seating, and my aunt had turned the chair of mother's desk to face me. It was chilly outside, but we had a fire in the grate, the curtains drawn, the lamps lit. How could she have disappeared so completely? I said. Your uncle believes she is no longer in town. His inquiries usually result in some leads, but in this case, he has come up with nothing. I assume Mr. Rogan has been interviewed repeatedly, though not by your uncle. They are not on speaking terms. Is Mr. Leggett a trustworthy person? My aunt sent a dismissive puff of air through her nostrils. None of them are trustworthy, she said. They are the worst sort of men. They inflate their expenses past all reason, and there's nothing to be done about it. But your uncle has employed Mr. Leggett in the past with some success. He will want $25 in advance against the reward. And if he fails to bring her back, the money is forfeit, she explained. There's no guarantee that he will find her. He is complaining that we have allowed too much time to pass. If she is, as your uncle suspects, making her way north, she might have gotten quite far by now. They're looking for Sarah. Sarah escaped, honey. Sarah fought the hell out of Manning and escaped with her baby. But she left Walter, the little boy. Mr. Leggett has retrieved Waterways from as far away as Boston. But it takes time. Once she's in a free state, he can't rely on cooperation from the authorities, though there are always those who will assist in the capture for a price. Boston, I said. It does seem unlikely, my aunt agreed. Mr. Leggett wants to know if she has any relatives in the North who might assist her. Not that I know of, I said. She never spoke of anyone. Do you know where she was born? Mississippi, I believe. She was from a plantation near Natchez. I assume that's where she was born. Perhaps she has gone there. I think not, my aunt said. She was sold as part of a bankruptcy settlement. Is that where Uncle Emily bought her? Emma, Emile. Is that where Uncle M bought her? No, he bought her from a sugar planter in St. John Parish. Actually, he took her in payment of a debt. He knew I was in need of a housekeeper, and she was just 15 or 16, very bright and willing, though she had a stubborn streak every day, and now she's 27. She is stubborn, I mused. I still believe Mr. Rogan knows where she is. I recall my one sighting of Mr. Rogan as he turned from Sarah, lifting his hat to me and walking away. She told me he had a brother, I said. I didn't believe it at the time, but perhaps it's true. She said Mr. Rogan came here to give her the message that her brother had been leased to work on the docks. She told me she had a brother here. Did she say the brother's name? Clarence, I said, but why would she tell me if she planned to escape with his help? Perhaps she had not yet formulated the plan. Could she have boarded an ocean vessel? If she were in disguise? If she had money and passed as a free Negro? I think it entirely possible. But she speaks so poorly. Surely someone would notice. Sometimes the dullest Negro is discovered to have a perfectly good wit when it serves his purpose, and she might not be called upon to speak very much. I imagine Sarah, dressed in some borrowed finery, her hair pulled up in a good bonnet, her elbows propped up on the rail of the ship, while the water churned below her and the miles between her and the world she knew slipped away. You are right, I told my aunt. We must tell Mr. Leggett about this brother and bid him make inquiries on the docks. George Bolden sent flowers on the day I arrived, and again a week later, this time with a note asking if he might visit me. I examined my face in the mirror. The swelling and redness were largely gone, and a normal color had returned to my complexion. My shoulder ached, especially as the weather turned cooler, but the wound was closed over. I kept only a thin bandage on it to keep the cloth of my dress from rubbing against it. Yet I decided I would see him. I sent Rose with an answer, suggesting 4 the following afternoon as the hour of our tea to tea. As the hour approached, I was giddy with excitement. A condition completely inappropriate for one so recently widowed. I had Rose take Walter out to the levee with strict orders to stay away from the house for several hours. Rose liked nothing better than strolling about the town with the poor idiot on a halter and leash that Delphine had fashioned for him. I had Delphine move an armchair close to the seating and put the coffee urn on the table in reach of my good arm. Then I waited for the bell, which sounded promptly at 4. Delphine passed through the room to admit Joel, then scurried back to the kitchen while he stood in the parlor doorway, smiling down at me. At last, he said, I have tried to be patient until you were well enough to receive visitors, but I've not had an easy moment until this one. I fear you will find me sadly changed, I said. He leaned in and took the chair near me, leaning forward to look into my face. After what you have been through, he said, how could you not be changed? There was no trace of revulsion in his scrutiny, only a fascinated admiration, such as I had seen in my uncle's eyes when he visited. I had survived that which we all, in some degree, feared. Your aunt told me that you spent the entire night hiding in the forest, wounded by a gunshot. I lifted my useless arm by the wrist, and let it fall back into my lap. This is the result, I said. My dear, he said, I try not to think about any of it. He sat back in his chair. You are right. You must go on with your life. He looked about the room at the fire, the paintings, the vase of flowers on the side table. What a comfort it must be to you to be back in this house. It is, I said. It makes me think of happier times. I turned to the coffee urn. Will you have coffee, or would you prefer a glass of sherry? Let me serve you, he said, getting up. He busied himself with the cups and saucers, pouring the coffee and milk together expertly and talking all the while. I had visited your aunt regularly to keep up with your progress. She tells me your brother-in-law is handling the sale of your plantation and that an American has offered to buy it outright with everything in it. Mr. Kenilworth, Mr. Kenilworth, Kenilworth. He has come out of the north like a god, possessed of more money than sense and a fantasy about being a planter that I've no doubt will rob him of both. Poor Mr. Kenilworth, George chuckled, handing me my cup. It might be him. You know, I'm never certain if it is your wit or your beauty that pleases me most. But he want her land. He want her land, her slaves too. You are easily pleased, I said. Perhaps as easily as Mr. Kenilworth. I care nothing for him, George said, but that he served the purpose of making you rich. Oh. Alas, I fear that's something even Mr. Kenilworth cannot do. George resumed his seat and stirred his coffee, looking puzzled. My husband was heavily in debt, I explained. Mr. Kenilworth's offer would barely cancel it. I didn't know, George said somberly, as if he'd just heard of the death of a favorite dog. Yeah, he like you ain't got no money now. He looked up, then back down. For the first time in my memory, he was at a loss for words. All this time he has been thinking I would be rich, I thought. For a moment we sat silently, staring into the reality of his requirements and my resources. Fortunately, I said, Mother's estate is at it. I'm not rich, but I am independent. And well out of sugar, George responded, rousing himself. I'm sorry to hear that your husband was unsuccessful, but he was certainly not alone in that. Do you never think of quitting it yourself? I should, he said. I hate it. I never go to revering, but I'm continually advised to wait, as the economic tide will turn or the weather change, or the Negroes all get well by some miracle and start doing a decent day's work. What else can I do? I'm not fit for business. Half the time I live on credit from my factory. He sipped his coffee, resting his eyes on a portrait of my father, whom he never met. It seems the happiest years are behind us, he said. I set my cup on the side table and leaned back into the cushions, seeking to ease the pain in my shoulder. I've never known you to be so melancholy. I said I was counting on you to cheer me up. George opened his wide eyes as if he just glanced at his reflection and seen someone he didn't recognize. As you have every right to expect, he said. You must forgive me. I do, I said, and I did, but the effort fatigued me. It seemed that happiness must always be just beyond me, and I should always stand gazing in at it as through a shop window, where everything glittered and appealed to me, but I had not enough money to enter. It was money, only money, that would keep Joy from ever being more than my friendly admirer. Joy struggled to rise above the summer mood that had fallen upon us. I have some excellent gossip for you, he said. Pierre Legrand has finally gotten his cup uncles. He launched into an amusing story about a man we both despised, whose wife had discovered his craven efforts to seduce her niece. After that, he went on to another hilarious account of a distinguished lady who had proved a poor loser at Bezique, Bezique. You are a tonic, I said, when I had paused from laughing, and I must pay for my medicine. May I offer you some champagne? It is what the doctor recommends, he exclaimed. He trying to charm her now, trying to get that money her mama done left. Ring for Delphine, I said, and he rose to pull the cord. She came in, wiping her hands on her apron, her chin tucked nearly into her breastbone. I gave her my instructions. There were oysters as well. I'd had Rose buy them in the morning, and she went out hurriedly. She's not accustomed to serving, I said. She is mortified to leave the kitchen. What's become of Peak? He inquired. I had to give her away instead of setting her free. Peak was her mama's slave. She was getting on, and her cooking really is abominable. Delphine is an accomplished cook, In a few weeks, I will give a small dinner party and you may sample her doll, Daube. Gladly, he agreed. Delphine came in, desperately clutching the tray, in terror that the glasses must tumble over. George directed her to the desk, clearing away the few papers scattered over it. Well done, he said as she backed away. No need to stay. I'll serve your mistress with pleasure. She hurried out, casting me a cautious look, but I waved her away. George struggled with the cord. Then there was a sharp pop that is the signifier of gate. He turned towards me, holding the bottle close over a crystal flute as the golden liquid frothed inside. His eyes were bright, his smile infectious. He was turning his own pleasure over in his mind. My mother had offered material kindness, boundless admiration, and the occasional dinner. My tenure would be more enticing. He handed me a glass, filled one for himself, and proposed a toast. To this house, he said, which is for me the sweetest refuge in the civilized world. It wasn't long before the bottle was empty and the refuge, at least for one evening, no longer requisite. There was a dinner engagement, and after that, gambling or dancing, a city full of amusements to tempt my guests from my cozy parlor. At the door, George took my hands and gave me a brotherly kiss on each cheek. I am dining at your aunt's on Saturday, he said. Will you be there? I will make a point to it, I said. I will make a point of it, I said. Then he went out into the street. I bolted the door and leaned against the wall, lightheaded but not lighthearted. In fact, a considerable darkness descended upon me. I went back to the city and sat gazing into the fire. Standing in the doorway, bidding Joe good night, had made me think of my husband, of his visits in this house so long ago, when I was too naive to understand the nature of the bargain I was making. I was young, I was pretty, and I had no money. My husband was of a good family, had expectations and a large house. I didn't find him particularly attractive, but I felt no positive revulsion, and I enjoyed how strongly he seemed to be attracted to me. His eyes were always moving over me. If I let him touch my hand or my waist, I could feel his struggle to refrain from pulling me to him. My mother observed this, and as it didn't disturb her, I took it to be in the proper order of things. Mr. Gaudette is taken with you, she said. I think we needn't worry too much about the dowry. I had in myself, I concluded, some value, something more desirable to my husband than money. At the time, this struck me as unusual. My invincible stupidity was revealed to me on my wedding night. My mother's house having been reckoned too small, when my wedding celebrations was over, I was arranged upon the bed in a room at my aunt's house. The servant was sent away. My husband came in, unfastening his cuffs. He pushed the door closed with his boot. Mother's entire advice had been the word submit, but I had no more idea of what I would be submitting to than I had of the workings of a steam engine. A likely metaphor. My husband roared over me like a locomotive. There were moments when it seemed to me his object was to pull my limbs from their joints. I glanced over his shoulder at the mantel clock, anxious to know how long the operation might take. My breasts, which had never been touched by another, save a servant with a sponge, were so kneaded and sucked upon, I feared that they would be blackened by bruises. I wanted to shout to my mother, why did you not warn me? But then it occurred to me that father would never have subjected another creature to such an assault. I looked into my husband's reddened face, at his eyes, which seemed to start from their sockets, at his lips, swollen by his passion. Was there to be no trace of feeling for my helplessness? No tenderness in my marital bed? The answer to both these questions was no and none. Afterwards, he was silent, not critical. There were no harsh words. He did not appear to be displeased. He had exhausted himself and within a few minutes was sound asleep. I touched the damp sheet beneath my hips and found my fingertips red with blood. I am married, I thought. Looking at his sleeping face, his mouth was open, his breathing as easy and peaceful as a child's. This is my husband, I thought. I think we'll stop right there and let me see. Yep. because it ain't no more small paragraphs and stuff. It's just the rest. Is just the rest of this chapter right here. And I'll see y'all tomorrow. Thank you so much. I thank you for your prize, your presence, and your patience. For being here. It's been a long day. I still want to put up some books, but I'm gonna get some rest. We'll be back tomorrow. Just process all of this. This is not really too horrific. It ain't really graphic and stuff, and that's a good thing. Because that other graphic stuff, that take a lot more out of it. Not saying that this right here don't, because they leaving a lot of horror out of this right here. And it's someone younger could read this book. Yeah, it's definitely different from that one. This one right here. But I digress. But I thank you again, and love and power to the people. Yeah, let's get us some rest, rejuvenate, and keep your eyes on the prize everybody else is. Don't let nothing worry you and stress you out. Just keep preparing. Keep buying up, getting your garden together, get your personal library together. Buy the things you're going to need, your water, your lamps, your lanterns, flashlights, your canned goods and stuff. If you can, get your jellies and stuff going, and so you'll have something to eat on, stuff, you and the baby and stuff, your books. You'll be able to stay occupied, your garden. You'll be able to feed yourself and stuff. Yeah, let's just start creating for us. Peace and power to the people. Well, hi, Melissa. Worst day today got on YouTube. I don't know, but mine wasn't the worst day. Sing a song, be grateful. You know, uh, yeah. And I just wish you all the best. Just stay grateful, Melissa, and keep a song in your heart. Good night.